This is your Monday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to have you back for another week. Patrick Reusse joins me in a little bit here on the show. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff. Twins on pause and not playing all that well before that. Timberwolves unable to put two good games together or, let alone win two games in a row. They still have not done that since the very first two games of this season. Talk some Gopher volleyball, talk about transfer stuff, all sorts of stuff that we'll get to with Patrick Reusse. I've got a hot take from a reader coming up as well. But first, what did I miss? Well, you guys, about a little over a week ago, something like that, there was someone who came on this show talking about how maybe the Wild needed to trade Zach Parise at the trade deadline. I think it was probably 2 weeks ago now. That this happened, because that was right around the trade deadline. I think it was like the 5th or something like that was the trade deadline. Memory doesn't exactly serve me. It was a week ago, somewhere in there. Someone came on the show and said, trade Zach Parise. And I'm not going to name names, but it was me. So I thought that this relationship between the Wild and Parise, which has been going on for a long time, which has been good, but hadn't really gotten them exactly where they wanted to go. I thought it was at a point where it was not salvageable. There was all these, warning signs that Zach Parise wanted to play more, that he wasn't playing all that well, that the Wild, were benching him at times, decreasing his playing time at times. He only had 3 goals, I think, going into the trade deadline. It wasn't that long ago. So Zach Parise, all of a sudden is now one of their best players. And he, again, that shouldn't necessarily be a surprise, because when I talked about this, a week or two ago, it was in the context of he still was the player who led the team in goals each of the last 2 years, but it was feeling like it just wasn't working out. Well, guess what? Had a goal in that game where they just got absolutely smoked by St. Louis. But really, this 3-game winning streak that they're on, this 3-game homestand that they just had over, starting late last week and going over the weekend with Arizona and San Jose. Parise has a goal in each of those games, has 7 on the season now. Had 4 points in that series, all of it even strength. Had it was a +5 in that series. And he and Bonino and Sturm, Nick Bonino and Nico Sturm, really doing good work. It's ostensibly a 4th line, not playing like a 4th line right now. Parise's ice time, still fluctuating, but crept up a little bit in that Saturday game to 14, almost 15 minutes, the most he had played since March 20th. So, the most ice time in almost a month, earning that ice time with improved play. And, I'll let Zach speak for himself, too. Here's a quote he had after that game where he talked about the line, how it's clicking, and what's going well for him and the Wild right now.
Our line is getting good chances. We're getting hard-working chances. We're getting rush chances. We've been playing really well without the puck. We're not spending a lot of time in our zone, and that just, for all 3 of us, that makes the game a lot easier, and all 3 of us are benefiting from that.
And listen, I'm not even going to mockingly take credit for turning Zach Parise's season around. That's not what I do here. Of course, the things that people say in the media have no real bearing on what's happening with the player on the ice. What I will say is, the thing that I had wondered about and kind of had thought, this is the reason you don't trade him, right? Because even if it feels like it's going nowhere, even if you can kind of get out from underneath his money, He does have this kind of run in him. If they could kind of figure out, get him into a better place, get him into a feeling of feeling better, whether it's here or somewhere else, then you could see some of these things coming out. And that's what we're starting to see right now. Zach Parise's a veteran. He's got a lot of confidence still. He's got a lot of ability. He's a hard-working player. So we'll see if this Zach Parise that we're seeing right now can continue to stay happy and can continue to stay on the ice and can continue to stay productive, because right now he has been one of their best players over the last 7 to 10 days, even if I tried to get rid of him 7 to 10 days ago as well. Number 1 national recruit Chet Holmgren to make his decision today on where he is going to college. Got his narrowed list to Georgetown, Gonzaga, Memphis, Michigan, Minnesota, North Carolina, and Ohio State. I think everybody knows don't expect miracles here. Minnesota on the list, but not expecting Chet Holmgren, the number one overall recruit, to pick Minnesota. I guess if there's probably a front runner, you'd have to think it was Gonzaga, based on the success that his former Minnehaha Academy teammate Jalen Suggs had out there this year, going all the way to the NCAA title game. Going to be a high lottery pick this year, but that announcement is coming at noon on Sports Center. That'll be lots of fun. So if you're catching this early today, you might want to turn on Sports Center at around noon to hear where Chet Holmgren is going to go to continue his career in college.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Monday on Daily Delivery often means Patrick Reusse joins me. Patrick here again. Thought, Patrick, we'd have a lot of West Coast baseball to talk about, but turns out not even Dr. Rocco could solve what ails this team. COVID pause. They made it through all last year without having to go into one, but the Twins postponed Saturday, Sunday, and now Monday's game postponed too. They're trying to play a traditional doubleheader Tuesday, which I presume means 7 innings, not 9, so not traditional in that sense.
I got news for them. 7 innings is not traditional, but unless you're playing at Fulda High School or something, it's not traditional. But that's okay. And I mean, obviously it's something that you got to do during the pandemic to try to get these games played. First time the Twins have been halted by it. They made it through last year. I think they had one game delayed, right? Didn't they? That it wasn't their situation.
Yeah.
But you know what I find hilarious almost is they won't tell you who their 3 COVID guys are who are going to end up having to go to quarantine. Well, somebody's not going to be playing, right?
Right.
So it's going to be fairly obvious who these guys are. I mean, I don't have any idea, but if Miguel Sano's not at first base, it's going to be hard to miss, right?
Right.
And he's not there. He's a big man. So, Simmons, we knew right away, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Didn't they announce that? So
yeah, we knew Simmons. We knew Garlick too was the second one. So
but Garlic only because he put it on some social media outlet, right? So anyway, we don't know who they are as of yet, but yeah, and it's I think the story I read today that it's one, they believe it's one of the variants too, right? So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if they get to play. What a terrible place to have it hit you though out in the West Coast, because you would have to go back out there to make the games up unless you can get, unless the Angels agree to play here, when they come back here and you play a bunch of doubleheaders when they get back, now Oakland, hopefully they'll get it played, but I don't know. They have not pre-COVID. They were playing pretty lousy, so it'll be interesting to see if they can adjust from this. But right now, it's not right now it wasn't an impressive looking club, and now they're going to have to pack up a bunch of games. I thought, Mike, last week that we saw Rocco's worst managing since he's been here. Just a lot of really goofy decisions, and I would start with the idea that they used both Maeda and Brios in that doubleheader right up there. I don't empty my vat that day like they did. I would have. If I'm going to do a bullpenny type game, I'm going to do it in that doubleheader and then in that second game and leave one of those pitchers to pitch the next day. And I don't know. I just think strategically they've been pretty awful, at least in the last week or so before the COVID hit. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe he misses, Mike Bell. Maybe he misses Derek Shelton whisper in his ear. But they've. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen a Twins manager do was and then they're trying to win that game the other day. They have Cave bunt, something they never do. They bunt, they got runners at first and second. They bunt them over. And then he lets Jeffers go up and hit instead of use Josh Donaldson, who's had played the game before. And I don't know what's going on in his brain, but he has no urgency to win ball games, and that's long term. They're not that good. They're okay, but they're not that good. And you can't sit back and say, oh well, it's more important for Josh Donaldson not to get in that bat after we're already brought him back than to win a game. It's ridiculous. And I of course wrote a kind of a satirical column on that.
Got that one in just in time.
Dr. Baldelli, who does, he would have put a line or somebody out of business if he would have been a family doctor. The emergency room would be full of his patients. But anyway, I don't know. He's having a bad year, and the Twins aren't as good as they thought they were. That's the way as we thought they were, and allegedly Buxton was going to play. So
that's good.
Well, because I mean they're 20. You know what? You know who he is? I was thinking, who's the comparable in Minnesota sports? Gaborik is the comparable. Wouldn't you say?
Take him out of the lineup, and just it all falls apart.
No, well, yeah, but they're 20% worse. The Wild was 20% worse when Gaborik wasn't healthy and playing. And same thing with Buxton. This baseball team is 20. I've been saying they're 20% better. Hitting. Pitching gets better because he's there. Fielding gets better because he's there. The pitching gets better because the fielding gets better. But the same thing in Gaborik. It was, when you couldn't keep him healthy, you weren't as good as you weren't nearly as good as you were when he was playing. So anyway,
I'd say Karl Anthony Towns, but the Wolves are about 100% worse when he doesn't play. Yes, not 20.
That is true. It is. We once again. Now I heard our old friend Barrero ranting about this about 10 days ago on the air, but the idea that they get overconfident is one of the most hilarious things in the history of Minnesota sports. Edwards said it. Cat basically said it last night again in profane manner, apparently, that they just, they just win a game and they get so filled with confidence they just don't bother to play the next game.
Right.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Look at the standings.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes,
You're not overconfident, you're bad. But it is. I mean, they haven't had a two-game winning streak since the first two games of this season. It's unbelievable.
Right? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they win. They won their first two games of the year. And what are they now? 15-43 after getting absolutely run by the Clippers. And if you just saw the final score last night, I stayed up and watched part of that game. It was like almost 40 points in the third quarter that they were down by. So that 19 was not even indicative of how that game went. But they haven't followed a win with another win since the first two games of this season.
The only time they play fiercely is if it's against somebody they don't like, either Tibbs or Butler, right? Well, this is an entirely new team. I mean, basically since those two guys left, but it gets Cat fired up, that's for sure. And there are only two efforts really that were impressive in the last month have been beating Tibbs and beating Butler, but. By the way, as I said on Twitter, Tibbs 6 in a row with that collection. I'm just proud to call him a close personal friend.
You guys were always pretty close. He's done a great job over there. It's unbelievable. I mean, Randall's having a really good year, and you look over at the minutes too. Did you see what game?
47.
He played RJ Barrett like 46, 47 minutes the other night.
Well, yesterday went to overtime. Randall went 47 and Derrick Rose went 35 yesterday. Tibbs, that's what I always liked about him. Win tonight. That's all that matters.
He's the opposite of Rocco. He's the anti-Rocco, is he not? We'll play through it, play all those minutes. We're gonna win tonight. I don't care. We have 7-man rotation. We'll worry about the rest later.
But Mike, this league, okay, you're only letting 1,500 people in or something like that with the Timberwolves, but you're going to turn into television. The other night, the Bucks are here. You don't get Cat and you don't get Giannis. That league's drive. If I was a ticket holder and paying money in a regular season, this league would drive me nuts because you buy your ticket, you have no idea who's going to agree to play that night, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
Kyle Lowry's missed 4 straight games for rest. 4
Yes.
straight games
for rest. Yeah,
it gets worse this time of year when teams are, let's say, not as motivated to win.
Yeah. Yeah, but didn't you? Didn't they try to do something about? I mean, this all started with Popovich, and didn't they try to do something about that? That you had to play if it was a national TV game or something like that. They tried to fight. The league tried to fight against this rest thing, but now they've basically given up, and the coach's whim has become a big deal. Well, there's only one solution for this, right? Play 70 games, right?
Right.
I mean, that's got to be your rest, because you can't be selling this product when anybody who wants to, any superstar that the other team wants to sit down, you go to the arena, you don't get to see him play. It's now, that's why I loved what LeBron was trying to do this year, which was play every game. Unfortunately, got hurt, which probably now reaffirms the idea. See, we can't play these guys all the time. So,
well, and it's exacerbated this year just because the schedule it's tighter. Sure. It's tighter. I mean, they're only playing 72, but they've got less time. It's just a little bit more packed. I mean, you saw a week ago when the Wolves and Nets postponed that Monday game with the Dante Wright situation developing. As a week ago now. I don't know if, the decision was made, we got to play this Tuesday, because otherwise either one of those teams is going to have a back-to-back-to-back. That was how otherwise they couldn't reschedule. Otherwise, like, it is so packed together, especially in the, down the stretch here, that, they can't help it. But yeah, it's got to be tough for the consumers, and maybe they'll get into a better place next year once they're hoping to have full attendance again and things like that. But it's not knowing who's going to play from night to night. It's like, hey, Kawhi played last night. Hey, really nice for them.
Right.
They got the brunt of Kawhi last night, which was nice for them. But
and they the advance of that game made it sound like he wasn't good, but he must have said, "Well, come on, I can play 20 minutes and get 20 points. I might as well play." So
pretty much,
man, they are. Once in a while, they play about 6 minutes of good defense, but Chris Finch has not been able to do anything about that. There have been moments when they guarded people, but not very often. Hey, by the way, Jared Culver, let's not forget Gerson's move to draft that guy. He's becoming one of the great busts in franchise history. Yeah. He can't get any minutes with this team.
Yeah, no, he got a little garbage time last night, but he's been pretty well glued to the bench. Number 6 pick. They moved up, but they traded Saric and the 11 pick to get him in the 2019 draft, and that has not. I mean,
everybody says they thought they were going to get Garland, the guard,
right?
But why don't you wait to see if you're going to get Garland? There's 10 minutes there. I mean, what's the hurry?
Well, that high in the draft too, like drafting a wing who can't shoot. It's a little,
especially when you plan to shoot 43s a night. That's what your game plan is. It never made any sense.
And especially when you just drafted one of those the year before with a Kogi.
Yeah, that's true. I'd like to see that horse game. They should let people in free to see Culver and Kogi have a horse contest. It'd take 2 hours for either of them to make 5 shots, to get the horse. They'd have to make it pig because it wouldn't the horse would take too long.
Patrick, last thing. I know you and I, you especially, but both of us are some of the foremost Gopher volleyball watchers in this market. They lost Sweet 16 to a team that had never been to the Sweet 16, right? An unseeded Pitt team Gophers were up 2-1, couldn't close the deal. This is kind of a pattern maybe of not being not quite playing up to their seed, is it not?
Yes, it is. I'm wondering if they get a little overrated or what it is. That Oregon one, of course, is one of the worst losses that they've ever had, because that was when the Final Four was here and it was at Maturi Pavilion. But yesterday, I tell you, Mike, you can't get to, if you're the favorite, and no matter how tough-minded your kids are, you can't get to that fifth set because things get tense, right?
Yeah, when it's just 15 points too.
You're playing to 15. It's there's no time to mess around. And when they lost that Oregon one a couple of years ago, they got a bad call, what they thought was a bad call, and lost. They thought they had the set one to go ahead 2-0, and they didn't, and the call went against them, and they just faded into the evening. And yesterday, it's just when they win the third set, and they're saying, okay, they go out. This is when you go out and demolish them, and they couldn't do it. And it's a trend here. Now you find out if they can all come back. Is Zamity going to come back? We got to find that out. In the fall, is she going to come back? They could be great next year, and if they'd let them use the extra scholarships, like they're letting Fleck use the extra scholarships because the pandemic rules. They could be too good to fail next year. One thing they did do, this team did lose CC McGraw. She wasn't playing, and that's like she had been, and she's one of their best players. So that hurt, but that's a bad loss, man. They had to be a weird atmosphere down there, though, right? Like playing in a big convention hall. But I was shocked. I thought they'd. I thought now we might have to sit back and watch Wisconsin win the national championship. They're really good. They're really good. So bad loss, man.
Are we setting up for the greatest year or one of the greatest years in recent college sports history with all these players that can come back? Man, next year could be something else.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, I was mentioning that this Michigan baseball team just went and got guys who've already played all their years, and everybody can come back. I was over watching the Gopher baseball team yesterday, and John Anderson's got 37 players. He's got 9 freshmen that all can come back. They let him go 2 over the 35 this year, even though you could have unlimited. But he's got 9 freshmen coming in. First time in his life, he's going to have to tell people, I don't want you back. Sorry, you got to go. And because they got to have the NCAA is going to have a Division I 40 player limit next year, which is just 5 more than normal. But the Gophers got to stick to 35 because of the drop in sports and allegedly gender equity issues. So he's going to have to, for the first time in his life, tell 9-10 guys, hey, maybe you ought to go play at Duluth or someplace, So it's a weird, but talent wise, you got 23, 24. Did you see Chip's story on Fleck's football team?
I haven't seen it yet.
How many guys? He's got 2 guys next year are going to be their 7th season.
What? Medical red shirt and COVID year?
Medical red shirt allowed him to play 6, and now this is allow him to play 7. They got 2 guys who are going to be there 7 years.
That's like longer than the average NFL career.
That's my old friend John Rose playing at St. Cloud State. He was when John was up there, he'd go work full time at the Times, and then he'd go back. He's the reason I got to the St. Cloud Times, because he finally decided he was too old to still be in college and went and got his degree. Created an opening at St. Cloud, but he was about a 7-8 year wonder, John, and there was a lot of those guys. But yeah, these guys are like 25 now, and they're still playing football.
Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right, Patrick, good stuff. Appreciate you hopping on this morning. Take care. We'll catch you again next Monday, all right?
All right, Michael. Thank you.
Great conversation as always with Patrick. We got off track a little bit. I had meant to veer back towards the Twins a little bit more, as often happens with Patrick and I. We get going on one thing, then it leads to another thing, another thing, another thing. I think he was right about the Rocco Baldelli and just not having a great start to this season. I get that Rocco's playing the long game this year, but even before this COVID pause, things weren't going great. They started the season 5-2. All of a sudden, they were 6-8. Some curious late game decisions. I thought it was strange. The last game before the pause, that must have been Friday night's game when they're trying to hold on to that lead in the middle to late innings. They had just taken a 3-2 lead, and you bring the infield in and pitch to Mike Trout. He just grounds one through the left side. All of a sudden, you're down 4-3. Why pitch to Mike Trout there, and why bring the infield in? It just felt like a curious decision. Strategically, he's made some decisions that have been lacking this season, and it shows up in close games, especially where the Twins have not been good this season. I know that game against the Angels, the last one before the COVID pause, didn't turn out to be a close final score, but that was a close game. That was 3-2 Twins after they scored those runs in the 5th, 6th inning, and next thing you know, it's 10-3 Angels. So we'll see when they can get back in the field. Hopefully, it's by Tuesday if they're deemed healthy enough. And, let's see if they're able to put together a little bit more momentum, because right now, whatever momentum they had at the beginning of the season has been lost and is going in the complete opposite and wrong direction. And, multiple factors there, but I think the managing of Rocco Baldelli has been near the top of that list.
Hit me with a hot one.
We got a hot take here from Bjorn. This was from last week after the sale of the Timberwolves and whatnot being announced, with Alex Rodriguez, Mark Laurie saying, Minnesota sports market is too competitive with MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL, WNBA, MLS, Big Ten, and Division II and Division III schools. The Wolves should move. Selfishly, I don't think that's right. I'd like to have the NBA here. I'd like to have the Timberwolves here. It's it's just makes you feel like it's a big league market to have all of those major teams here. But I don't think that necessarily, intellectually that's a bad take. There are a lot of things here, especially for market size. There's only so many markets that have all of those things. It's a pretty unique thing, and this is a mid-sized market, not a large market. You're talking about TV markets, it's number 14. That's very much middle of the pack when you're talking about all the markets that are out there. So intellectually, I don't think that's wrong, Bjorn, but selfishly, I don't want that to happen, and I think that competition creates, a better marketplace for everybody, for all sports fans, and there's enough kind of gaps in these seasons. There's not so much overlap that you can't appreciate all of them. So, I would hope that, that's not a factor that is, let's just let the Wolves move because there's too many other sports here. I wouldn't think that would be a factor in letting them go, but I would hope that they're able to find a way to keep all of these things here because I enjoy it. I think that it works here. We're at capacity. I don't know what else we could possibly add. There's no more leagues to add, really. But for what we have right now, I think it's okay to have all of those things and still have them all be competitive financially and otherwise. Let's end with the cooler. A long and storied history for Gophers men's gymnastics came to an end on Sunday. The NCAA meet was here, Maturi Pavilion. Gophers finished 5th at the NCAA meet. Shane Wiskus takes home 2 individual championships in that event. But the history of this program is over. Being cut, part of cuts in these programs at the U. You hate to see history kind of fade, and obviously 118 years, you won't take that away. You'll still have everything that happened, but you would hope that you were able to sustain all these programs. And I remember, 2002, I was sent to Oklahoma City, I think, to cover Norman, Oklahoma, somewhere in Oklahoma to cover what then at that they thought was going to be the last meet that the Gophers were going to be at because they were going to get cut. They survived another 19 years. At least they had that much. They were coming up on their 100-year season right before that. But just kind of sad and somber when you see a program come down to the wire and then be eliminated. A lot of a lot of people trying to soak it all in, a lot of memories in that sport. So, I'm glad they were able to go out on a relatively high note with a 5th place finish, a really good score, and two titles for Shane Wiskus. But best of luck to all those guys going forward. And let's not forget about this program, because that was a really successful program for a lot of years, more than 100 years. That'll do it for today. Fun week coming up. Thanks for listening to Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Read Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Subscribe to this podcast. We will see you again on Tuesday.